Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this World Council of Credit Unions and Regional Credit Union Center webinar, Central and Eastern European Credit Unions, a transition from COVID-19 lockdowns. My name is Greg Newman, Director of Communications for World Council. I should say good afternoon for many of you in Europe. As COVID-19 restrictions loosen there in Central and Eastern Europe, credit unions will have to adjust to the new normal and what that means for their employees, their members, and their communities. This webinar is going to examine how some credit unions in other parts of the world have prepared for this transitions, and we're going to provide lessons on what others should expect and what they can do to exceed expectations during lockdown, how they can adapt to dealing with the end of those lockdowns as well. We're going to hear presentations today from Mark White. He is the president and CEO of Smart Money Cymru Credit Union in Wales in the United Kingdom. Bogdan Chmielewski, President and CEO of Polish and Slavic Federal Credit Union, located in the eastern half of the United States, and Rafał Matusiak, President of the National Association of Cooperative Savings and Credit Unions in Poland and Chair of the World Council of Credit Unions Board of Directors. If you have any questions for our speakers, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You'll see it if you hover over that, and you can type them in there. I will ask those questions at the end of the presentations as time allows. Also, today's webinar is being recorded. It's going to be available later today on the World Council YouTube channel. That's at youtube.com/WOCCU. But we're going to start today's webinar with a few opening remarks from our board chair, Rafał Matusiak. Rafał?
Thank you, Greg. Hello, everyone. I'm very glad to see you all on our webinar, and I'm also very glad that we can collect such amazing persons as speakers for today's webinar, Mark White and Bogdan Chmielewski. And today we'd like to share with you with our experiences from COVID. We all are from different countries, but we have the same COVID-19 and all problems. And I'm very happy that today we can talk about how we can make a transition from this very unusual and very complicated period to the new normal reality. So thank you for joining our webinar today, and I think we all are ready to start the first presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rafał, and we will hear from Rafał later in the hour about what his organization has been doing to help come out of lockdown and also how they helped transition during. We turn now to our first presenter of the day. As Rafał mentioned, Mark White is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Smart Money Cymru Credit Union based in Wales in the United Kingdom. That's a position he's held for nearly 2 years. Before that, Mark served as CEO of the Robert Owen Community Banking Fund, a community development finance institution operating across Wales that provides finance for development of SMEs, community energy projects, and home improvements. Mark's going to be presenting today on how Smart Money Cymru's credit union's path from lockdown to growth worked. Mark, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you to WOCCU for inviting me to present today. It's a great honor. Thank you. As Greg said, my name is Mark White. I'm Chief Executive Officer at Smart Money Cymru Credit Union, and we'll just give you a quick overview of what I'm going to talk about today. Essentially, how Smart Money used the lockdown to launch its growth, and the methods that we used by removing barriers to customers, simplifying the business, investing in fintech and digitizing the business. We reached out to customers. We understood what our market was, or took the time to better understand what our market was and what we meant to our members and customers. And internally, we use all of this to change the culture from this is what we do to what would you like us to do as members. All too often, I think credit unions embedded in communities tend to sort of show what it is that they offer rather than actually asking communities. First of all, quick snapshot of Wales. Not all of you on this webinar will necessarily know about Wales, but we're part of the United Kingdom, Great Britain. We have a devolved government with powers devolved from the UK central government. The population of Wales is just over 3 million, so it's a small nation. And about half of that population is concentrated in Southeast Wales, which is where smart money is located. The economy is a post-industrial economy, which very much, particularly in this part of Wales, was based traditionally on coal and steel manufacturing. We have a strong rural economy, lots of farming and agriculture. And in recent years, last 2 or 3 decades, Wales has very much moved into tourism, leisure and service industries. We do have quite a strong financial services industries in Wales now. The nation has a very strong cultural identity. It's got its own language, and it's got its own arts and culture scene. It's got a decent rugby team and not a bad football team as well. Quick snapshot of smart money. We were established just over 30 years ago. We currently have 7,000, well, it's actually just under 7,400 members as we speak. We, in UK terms, would be defined as a small to medium-sized credit union. We've grown as a collection of small local credit unions amalgamated through mergers over the last 30 years. We're located near the capital of Wales, which is Cardiff, and we are right in the heart of former coal mining communities. We have 13 staff spread across 3 branch offices in the area. Plus we operate through 12 volunteer service points. These are community-based hubs where volunteers run services for us and reach out to our members through those service points located in schools, community centres, libraries and other community facilities. We have a strong board of 10 volunteer directors, and I must stress that we could have achieved any of the things that we have achieved during lockdown. We hadn't had a thoroughly engaged and informed board of directors. They've been very crucial to the success of smart money during lockdown. And I suppose at the heart of what we do, you could say that we're traditional savings and loan services, but we tried to add a lot more to that. So what did we do during lockdown? Well, these are statistics pulled from the Bank of England's statistics. We have to produce statistics to the Bank of England every quarter. The latest quarters are due out shortly, but this illustrates very graphically the sort of growth that smart money showed during lockdown, as opposed to what happened in the rest of the UK and the rest of Wales, particularly our growth in membership. In Wales as a whole, membership has gone down, and our growth in lending, which has been quite remarkable, 35%. We move it forward and update those figures. You can see that growth has continued, and in fact those figures take us up to the end of July. August to date, we're probably going to do our record ever August in terms of new loans to members and in recruiting new members. So what did smart money look like before lockdown? Well, I joined the credit union in December 2019. I've got a background going back 40 years in traditional retail banking and commercial banking. I've worked in the charitable and social economy sector on the banking side for the last 14, 15 years. But I came into smart money and found it was extremely paper driven. I walked into an office which was just full of people with brown folders and paper everywhere, and very little real use of financial technology to help them manage the business. In many respects, it was a traditional old-fashioned UK credit union. Service was good, it was very friendly. We've got a loyal membership here, but I have to say it was probably, by their own admission, it was patchy. Mistakes are common, etc., etc. One of the biggest barriers to members was they had to pay a fee to become a member. This was only £2. It contributed very, very little to the bottom line, but it was seen as a point of principle within the constitution of the credit union. Anything you wanted to do as a member involved lots of paper to fill in, to join, to become a member, or to apply for a loan. There was no online capacity. Everything had to be done by visiting a branch office. And what was the impact of the lockdown? Well, I came in just before the lockdown. Lockdown came along fairly quickly after I came in. April 2020, we had to shut all 3 of our branches. That was mandatory. We put most of our staff on leave. The UK government provided funding for organisations, employers to do that. That was very, very useful to us in terms of keeping the business going. And there's no question that business dropped. And just to illustrate that point, in April 2019, we did £162,000 worth of loans. In April 2020, we did 17,000. So that illustrates just how the UK fell off the cliff as the lockdown started to take hold and people's confidence fell and economic activity stopped. We invested immediately in a portfolio of laptops to allow people to work from home. And we stripped back to a core staff of 5 of us operating from home and using facilities like Zoom to interact with each other. What do we do during that time? Well, time, I think, was the key. We used the time to do a lot of things that we'd already been talking about doing, and to move the business forward. So we used the time to plan and accelerate the plans that we already had in development. We used the plan to digitize, to remove all those barriers that I was talking about before, to declutter and simplify the credit union business. We used the time to get out to our customers, to understand who they were, who the members are, what it is exactly that they want from us, and where did we fit with the rest of the financial services environment that they were trying to operate in and live in. And we also used the time to set up our social media platforms, because we had a very, very modest social media presence, but we knew that the way to get out to people in this new world was going to be through social media. What does decluttering and removing the barriers actually mean? It's as simple as this: everything that puts people off come into the credit union. All unnecessary processes are gone. Well, I say they're gone. It's a journey that we've started. It's a process that's ongoing, but everything that's unnecessary, we're getting rid of. Anything that's unnecessary in terms of charging our members to actually be members, gone. Anything that makes it simple to join the credit union, to save with us and borrow with us, we make it simple, not difficult. So we started to look at things from the members' perspective, bearing in mind that they're living in a world with these things: iPhones, clickability, online, simple, instant. Those are the buzzwords that we're living with now. So we reached out. We started to ask people what it was they wanted and where it was that they saw us fit in with the rest of their lives. Social media platforms were important in doing that. And in managing our social media platforms, and this is advice for any of you out there, is keep the channels open and keep them fresh. Make sure the communication is 2 ways. Make sure it's not just about you telling them what it is that you've got in the bag for them, but for members to come back to you and tell you what it is they want, and keep it fresh all the time. We encourage engagement now, so bad feedback we regard as more useful in many ways than good feedback. Good feedback's great. We love to see good feedback. We love 5-star ratings, but we're more interested in many ways with the criticisms, because it means there's something we need to address. Listen to what your customers want. Make sure that that we're thinking in the way that they're thinking. And what we did internally was make sure that staff are engaged in the same way. And we've moved our staff team, our customer services team, from being processors of paper to being listeners. So they're listening, spending more time listening to members than processing transactions and processing paper. There's just a sort of collage there of some of our social media presence. We use Trustpilot, which is quite big in the UK for getting feedback from members and for getting customer ratings. There's an example there of Instagram and Facebook postings as well. Interesting thing with Instagram is that as soon as we started posting on an Instagram account, we suddenly attracted a significant increase in applications from for loans from members in their early 20s. So it's very much about the demographics and looking at the different types of customers and members that you're reaching out to. So to summarize, what was our path from lockdown to growth? We simplified the business, we removed barriers, and I think that's probably the most important thing for any credit union transitioning out from lockdown, is remove the barriers. And as part of your process of removing barriers, you need to invest in tech. You need to invest in financial technology, digitize, to make things simpler and quicker for your members. You need to understand the market. In a commercial environment, that would be top of the list. And in many respects, credit unions are no different from any other commercial finance company in that respect. Understand what your members need, understand where you fit within their lifestyles and within their financial needs. Use the social media platforms and keep them open and fresh. Encourage that engagement, that two-way engagement. And then quite simply, go back to number one, review and repeat. As I said earlier, for us at Smart Money, this isn't an end. This is a journey, a constant journey that we've started, and we will continue on that journey. So what does the future hold as we come out of COVID-19? We hope we come out of COVID-19. We have a brand new website launching next month. Our existing website has served us well, but we need something that's a little more engaging and fits with those parameters around removing barriers and making things simple. We're doing more digital. We're investing in more fintech to make things simpler for us to manage, but more importantly, to make it easier for our members to access our services. We've got 3 branches, as we had before the lockdown, but they're very different looking branches to what they were before lockdown. The footfall is much reduced as people have got used to using digital and online. So we're reconfiguring our branches to turn them into community hubs. We're going to offer a range of community services based on online services through those hubs, so people can still come in and see us. I've talked a lot about digitization and fintech. All of that is to free up time to deal with those people that need to meet with us face to face and need our services and cannot access digital services. If we can make it easier for those that can use digital services, it gives us more time to concentrate on those that can't. We have a new product launching in October, Smart Goods, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in the next slide. And beyond 2021-22, we're looking at development of full personal banking services. I know that many of you out there, many of your credit unions will already be engaged in that. Smaller credit unions in the UK, it's been a market that they've been looking at. Now the platforms are there through fintech for us to be able to offer our own branded payment cards and that sort of thing. We'll be looking to do that in 2022. So Smart Goods is a product where we are partnering with an ethical supplier of furniture, electrical goods, TVs, washing machines, cookers, etc. We're setting up in partnership with our supplier partner, a new website, smartgoods.co.uk. Members will be able to get an instant loan decision, and through the supplier, they'll get goods delivered to their door within 48 hours. We'll be the first credit union in Wales to offer this product. There's an example there for anybody who wants to see what it looks like in practice. Fair for You over in the East Midlands of England. They've been very successful in driving this forward. And we see a huge amount of growth potential for us as a credit union. But more importantly, it's an important service for people within Wales, within our communities here, where Smart Money operates, who cannot access these goods through conventional commercial means. So for us, it's a growth opportunity. It's an opportunity to expand our social reach as well. So diolch yn fawr, which is Welsh for thank you. I think that Greg is saving questions for the end. I'm not sure, but if you do have any questions, very happy to try and answer them at the appropriate time.
We are going to wait till the end, but Mark, I have to say that I sit through a lot of these webinars and a lot of these presentations. I think that's probably one of the best I've seen in terms of really showing how you can make this transition. It's not just during the lockdown, but anytime from branch locations to digital. I have one question for you, and that is, how hard of a transition was it for your staff? Because you said that up until the lockdown, everything was done in the branch, and now you're really transitioning in 18 months away from that.
Yeah, and that's a really good question, Greg. And I'll be honest, it was hard for many of them. The team here, a lot of them have been here for a very long time. They've been used to doing things in a certain way, and bringing them along on that digital journey was really hard at first. And I met some resistance, but I have to say they've adapted really well. They can see the benefits, they can see the growth, the increased membership, and a lot of the staff here live within the community with a lot of our members, so they know a lot of our members personally. So I would say it's been hard, but once they've got used to it, it's worked really well, and they can see the benefits. What it's doing for them as well, Greg, as a final point in answer to that question, it's giving them the opportunity to add a lot more value to the relationship. It's a lot more than just transferring money from their credit union account to their bank account. It's much more about finding out about them, what it is that they need. And I think our staff have really welcomed that.
All right. Well, Mark, thanks so much. I'm sure we'll have some questions for you from the attendees at the end here. But up next, we're going to go. Thank you. Up next, we're going to transition to Bogdan Chmielewski. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Bogdan. Practiced it a few times. President and CEO of Polish and Slavic Federal Credit Union, which has over 100,000 members in 4 U.S. states. Bogdan has actually held that position twice, once for nearly 3 years in the first decade of this century, and again for the past 8 years. He's providing an overview today on how Polish and Slavic Federal Credit Union has been impacted by the pandemic, how they pivoted to handle it, and eventually moved past it, or as past it as we can be at this point with the Delta variant and everything else. So Bogdan, thanks for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm feeling very honored to do this presentation about the credit union, Polish and Slavic Credit Union during the pandemic time. And I always have to be the second after such a great presentation of Mark. So now I have a really big challenge. But at the beginning of my presentation, let me introduce our credit union, because many of the participants may never heard about us. The Polish and Slavic Federal Credit Union was established in Greenpoint. It's part of Brooklyn, New York in 1976 by the group of the Polish immigrants, led by the Polish priest, Father Longin Toczyk. And the credit union started from one desk at the Polish diner. After 45 years of operation, our credit union has $2.5 billion in assets, $1.2 billion in loans, $2.3 billion in deposits, and what's most important, over 107,000 members. Our members are served in 21 branches in 4 different states, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Illinois. And as of now, we have 357 employees working in branches, and over 120 of them work in the operations center in Fairfield, New Jersey. It's very important that I present our mission to our viewers, because this is the mission what we try to follow not only during the good times, but also during the very challenging times as the past 2 years during the COVID pandemic. So our mission is to provide our members with superior financial solutions to help them achieve their goals and to support the Polish and Slavic communities we serve. And here at the credit union, we treat both parts of this mission very, very seriously. Obviously, we are the financial institution first, so we have to, in other words, we have to make money to get some profit, to share this profit with our community and to support our community. These are a couple of first decisions what had to be made immediately after the COVID-19 outbreak. And the first one, to protect our employees' safety and health, we decided that all back office employees were transferred to work from home environment. It was a significant challenge, especially that we have to equip our employees with the VPN access, with laptops. Before the pandemic, only a manager had those attributes. So we have to do that very quickly in the very challenging time, but thanks to my IT and IS department, we did it. Branch staff was divided into 2 groups and rotated every second week, and also reduced business hours, branch business hours, but what's very important, we never stop operating our branches. So in other words, our members continuously were able to come to the branches to do the transactions, obviously with all of the safety and healthy precautions. And in the United States, the financial sector, banking and credit unions were identified as the very important sector, as the necessity, and that's why, according to the regulations, we could operate even during the pandemic. As I said, it was very, very important that we were able to serve our members during the branches without any interruptions, and the technical transitions, the technical equipment and business connections were able, what we provided to our members, were able to offer service to them on the continuous basis without any visible interruption to our members. And then we go to the second part of our mission, as I said, that we try to take care of our members from the financial aspect, financial services aspect, but also we try to help our community. As a leader of the Polish American community in the United States, we feel obligated to do that. In March 2020, so immediately after the pandemic outbreak, the board of directors of the credit union established a relief fund in the amount of 250,000, and the purpose of that fund was to support those seniors, children, and those people in our community who were most impacted by the pandemic. At the same time, Polish American organization reached out, and almost all of those funds were, distributed within 6 months of the pandemic. We also provided the support in the communities by sponsoring food, sanitary items. We provided necessary assistance to children and sick adults. We also, what was very important at the beginning of the pandemic, especially, we supported healthcare staff. We've provided them with food baskets and disposable masks. Also, in order to help our members during the challenging time, the immediate decision was made to waive all service charges for the period of up to, for 3 months. Obviously, it affected our income in year 2020, but it was a necessary decision what had to be made. At the same time, as you know, US government, as many other governments in Europe too, made a lot of decision to provide government funds, especially for the small business. And we immediately created certain procedure to assist our business members to obtain those government funds. over 200 business members took advantage of that offer of our help. And speaking about macroeconomic impact of pandemic, I have to say that at the beginning of the pandemic, our expectations were that first of all, that we're gonna lose deposits, we're gonna have problem with our lending department. I mean, with the loans, we expected a lot of charge-offs and delinquencies. But after a couple months, the situation appeared opposite. Our deposits started to grow significantly, and it was due to the strong government social programs and obviously limited consumer spending. We started to experience a record high number in residential mortgage application, which was a result of the huge demand for housing in suburbia area outside of metropolis like New York or Chicago, where we operate in. Of course, unexpected deposit growth significantly increased loan prepayments because members decided that with the low interest rates, they rather prepay the loans than keep the money, on the savings account. And so, in spite of the very large mortgage production, our loan balances didn't grow the way we expected. And also, the high level of personal savings prevented loan delinquencies, which started to decrease. And at this point, I think we're at record low loan delinquencies for the entire credit union history, percentage-wise, of course. And this graph shows you our impact on deposits in our credit unions. So as you can see, between 2018 and 2019, the deposit growth in our institution was 4.4%, but between 2019 and 2020, it was over 16%. And this year, after 7 months, we already have over 8% deposit growth, which I expect to be at the end of the 21 around 15–16%. The credit union financial results were impacted mostly by the low interest rate environment. Again, the United States government's, as I think all of the governments around the world, strategy was to keep rates as low at low levels to prevent economic crises. So as a result of those low interest rates, our net interest margin came down from 2019 in January 2020 to 199 at the end of July 2021. So it's almost 1% decrease in interest margin, which, on the $2.5 billion assets, you can calculate what large impact it had. Also, because the low interest rate environment, many people in the United States, our members too, they took advantage of the low interest rate and decided to either buy the house or to refinance the mortgage, which resulted in 23% increase in number of loan applications in 2020. I am very proud of the services, of the level of the services we provided to our members during the COVID-19 pandemic, and which it was proved by the most recent marketing survey we conducted with among our members. According to that survey, it was conducted by the independent company which has those surveys among 900 financial institutions in the United States, credit unions and banks. And according to that survey, over 97% of our members were either very satisfied or satisfied with services in our institution. It was the highest level that the company, Radom Financial Services, received from any institution they surveyed, which I'm very proud of it. And one of the examples is the activity of our call center, member service center. On average, the wait time for the calls to be answered by our employee was 15 seconds, even during the most difficult pandemic time. And that happened in spite of the significant increase in the calls. As you can see on the graph, during the entire 2019, we received over 125,000 calls. In 2020, obviously, we received much more. It was over 141,000 calls. In 21, we already received 85,000 calls. The same proportions are on the second graph with the electronic messages, what are answered by our member service center. 3,500 in 2019 versus 5,100 in 2020. One of the results of the pandemic was the lockdown, and because of the lockdown, obviously consumers couldn't spend money, and that impacted our interchange income, what we receive either from debit or credit cards, especially during the first months of pandemic. You see on the graph that in 2019 we received over $2 million from interchange income from credit cards, $2.8 million interchange income from debit cards. In 2020, we received only $1.9 million from credit cards and 2.8, almost the same level from the debit cards. However, you know, the speed of the spending increased significantly on the debit cards in the second part of the 2020, or actually the last 3 months of the 2020. Right now, more people are using debit cards, and actually the interchange income get this year to the record level. Since most of our customers, our members, stayed at home and they try to limit, you know, the unnecessary visit in the bank, in the branches, significantly increase the number of users of our online banking or mobile applications. And the graph presented that as of the end of 2019, we have 45,500 online banking users and 41,800 mobile application users. That increased significantly in 2020. Over 54,000 online banking users and over 55,000 mobile applications users. And those numbers grow, you know, the same pace this year. So as you can see, almost 33% increase year over year in mobile applications user. And this trend continue, and we expect for many different reasons will continue obviously in the future. The increased number of mobile applications or online banking transactions impacted the number of teller transactions. As you can see on this graph, especially during the pandemic, which you can look at the April 2020, but even later, the number of transactions went down, and it never came up to the level before the pandemic. Again, it's not only pandemic, but also the trends, the general trends in the financial industry. But the pandemic significantly, you know, impacted the number of teller transactions, teller interactions in the branches. As I mentioned at the beginning, our mission is to support the community, and we did that among other ways by participating in many different events in Polish American, or sponsoring those actually events in Polish American community in the United States. We also treated these events as very important marketing channel for us. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, the number of the Polish American community events dropped significantly during the year, which had also negative impact on our marketing strategy. As you can see, in 2019, we supported over 525 events. In 2020, it was almost half of it, 248. And right now, we are participated so far for the first 7 months of 2021 in 188 events. Our back office employees in March 2020 were transferred to work from home environment. Then sometime at the beginning of this year, we asked our back office employees to return to work at least 2 days per week. And at the same time, the branches were operated and returned to the operation to a normal business hours. Currently, our plan is to return all back office employees to normal 5 days a week schedule after Labor Day, September 7, but due to the new Delta variants of COVID and the increased number of COVID cases in United States, I think that this plan will be postponed at least until October or maybe later in the year. And in conclusion of my presentation, there are a couple post-pandemic effects what will definitely impact the credit union, not only our credit union, but all of the financial institutions in the United States for the future strategy. The first one is the macroeconomic results of the pandemic, and the US government, not only US government, all the governments probably around the world will keep the low interest rate policy for a longer period of time. And in response, we have to adopt our business model to be more efficient and look for additional sources of non-interest income because, as I said, the low rates probably, in my prediction, stay for at least a couple more years, if not forever. Another effect of our decisions in Polish and Slavic Credit Union was because we decided to keep our branches open and continuously offer our servicing during the pandemic, the increased members' confidence in our institution. We see a lot of examples where our members are closing accounts in different banks, especially commercial banks which took different strategy and closed the branches, and they are coming to our institution because, as I said, the confidence in Polish and Slavic increased significantly. We strengthen our leadership position among the Polish Americans in the United States. We proved that we are here with the community not only during the good time, but also during the difficult time. And the pandemic was probably the most challenging time, which majority of us experienced during our life. By creating this special, relief funds, by taking many forms of support to our community, our leadership role in the Polish American community even increased. Definitely, when we will talk about our strategic plan for the next couple years and preparing the budget for the years, we will put a lot of more focus on the technology. We did that for the past years, so I'm not saying that we didn't invest in the technology. Yes, we did, but I think the focus will be even stronger because pandemic proved that only technology-savvy institutions can provide true service, full service to the members. And of course, pandemic was also the special experience for all of us, and we are in process for updating and modernizing our disaster recovery plan and policies because the previous policies and recovery plan, I had to say, during the pandemic didn't work very well. We had to make many decisions, different decisions, immediate decisions. So I think that it's the experience what we gained during the pandemic will have effect on the future disaster recovery plans of our institution. So this is it. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm glad to answer any questions if they are.
Thank you, Bogdan. We do have a few questions in the queue. We're going to wait and hold off on those because we want to get to Rafał. We want to make sure that everybody has enough time to speak here, but I appreciate the presentation. And it's interesting, especially both you and Mark saying that you saw loans increase because we saw at the beginning of the pandemic, so many credit unions were having trouble with liquidity going way up and loans not being able to go out. So very interesting. And we probably will have some questions for you here in a little bit. But finally, we're going to return to where we started with Rafał Matusiak. Many of you know him as the president of the National Association of Cooperative Savings and Credit Unions, or NACSCU, World Council's direct member credit union association in Poland. And he also serves as chair of World Council's board of directors. NACSCU implemented a number of different initiatives in response to the pandemic, which actually left them in an even better situation coming out of lockdown. And Rafał is here to talk more about that. Rafał?
Thank you, Greg. Started from the United Kingdom through the United States, and now we are back in Europe, in my country, Poland. Great presentation. Thank you. From all these two presentations from credit union point of view, I would like to share with you our experiences and observations from association perspective, but still I can feel that our reflections are quite similar. So selected effects of the pandemic based on the example of Polish credit union. The COVID-19 pandemic changed our world. We are dealing with the typical black swan effect and a new reality. This new reality will be with us for a long time. However, let's look at some of the changes that we have noticed in Poland. First of all, digitization. Currently, this password is changed by all cases. Of course, digitization is a phenomenon that we dealt with before the pandemic, but COVID-19 undoubtedly made this process more dynamic and made it multi-dimensional. It appeared in areas where previously communication of a different nature prevailed. We also had to feed into this change at credit unions, as much as it was something ongoing in the area of methods of providing services. In the field of remote work or training and conferences, we encountered something new and we had to face it. Sanitary regime in departments and headquarters. This process has gone through different phases and different lifetimes, from fully closed to gradual opening. At a time when the facilities could reopen, we had to make sure that they were safe. The limited number of people admitted to the wards, disinfectants, protective screens for staff, and masks are challenges that we had to face in the new reality. The investment was obviously related to costs, but our members appreciated the fact that most of our branches were operating. An additional problem at that time was also the absenteeism of employees related to identified infections or the imposed quarantine in connection with contact with an infected persons. Another investment and change in the nature of work is performing work remotely. For example, from home. In this area, we had to take care of the appropriate technology, more laptops, software for secure communication with servers in the company, or systems for remote communication, including video conferences, are tasks that we carried out to ensure the smooth operation of our institution. There are also old challenges, but in a new version. Credit union has always helped and help its members. It is our duty and our mission. This is what we are for. During the pandemic, however, there were needs that we do not meet on a daily basis. For example, we started delivering purchases to the homes of our members who were unable to leave because of their age or the imposed quarantine. We delivered protective and disinfecting agents to 8 institutions. We also conducted educational campaigns showing how to safely proceed during the pandemic. These are only selected, but in my opinion, important challenges that we had to face in the new COVID reality. Please, next slide. Therefore, the changes and actions that we had to carry out concerned both our internal functioning as well as our relations with the external environment. Let's start with the first area selected, changes within the organization. First of all, hybrid mode of operation. This is a huge challenge that comes naturally with technology. Considering the nature of our business, we must meet high standards in the field of IT security. Business continuity and resistance to data loss are areas that require additional security in remote work. But this phenomenon also has an extremely important human dimension. Not all employees have the right conditions to work from home. Not all employees, it must be said as well, have sufficient self-discipline to avoid the temptation to engage in other less professional activities during working hours. It is a huge challenge for management to organize work and motivate employees to mitigate these problems and risks. The intensification of communication and more frequent talks about current and important matters for the company turned out to be extremely helpful. It was the correct and frequent communication that turned out to be the key to solving this problem. And I do not mean only communication between the management board and managers, but in fact, everyone with everyone. We have led to the fact that lines of communications began to cut our organizational structure in all directions. Feeling of joint effort whose aim is to maintain the continuity of operations and implementation despite the obstacles of the previously set goals gave additional energy and sense of teamwork despite the division of staff across different home locations. This area is strongly related to organizational culture. The new reality forces a review of its main elements and planning changes in this regard. We are seriously considering hiring an external expert to help us identify the necessary changes and implement them in our organization. In our opinion, the strategic plan for the entire credit union sector also requires a review. The new reality means not only new obstacles to overcome, but also new opportunities that should be skillfully used. Certainly, an important area in this planning is the digitization of services. But the whole market has changed. In Poland, for example, we are currently observing a very strong trend to invest savings in real estate. This is a result of very low interest rates, but also uncertainty about the future of the economy in the event of successive waves of COVID-19 infections. This naturally polarizes the offer of financial institutions and forces its review. Next slide, please. actions should be taken to reduce the negative effects in relation to the external environment. If we are talking about credit unions' relations with the external environment, from our perspective, the most important thing is digitization, tools and channels of remote access to financial services. This does not mean resignation from ground-based facilities, ground-based branches. Many members still highly value the possibility of direct contact with our staff. However, this does not change the fact that the trend is clear and will continue to deepen. It's hard to be a leader in this field when we compete with large commercial banks in the market, but you definitely need to offer a certain basis range of digital tools to maintain your market position. In order to successfully follow market trends in the field of digitization, you need to have a proper assessment of the situation. The so-called situation awareness. For this purpose, apart from observing banks, we actively participate in conferences and trainings that provide such knowledge. The matter is logistically easier because a large part of these meetings take place virtually. So the costs of time associated with moving to other cities are eliminated. We also organize open discussions with the participation of CEOs and employees of SCOC, Polish credit unions, in order to exchange acquired information and jointly determine the product policy. We also receive a lot of support in this regard from cooperating companies. For example, Visa International, which together with us creates a new account for credit unions members and helps us design an information campaign. It gives us measurable savings. Activities in the area beyond strictly financial services. One would like to say that this is our daily bread in credit union, but also here new tasks appear. One of the problems brought about the pandemic is the deepening phenomenon of depression. In order to be professional in helping people suffering from depression, we have started cooperation with a specialized foundation that conducts courses and consultancy in this area. Together, we will provide this knowledge to credit union employees and further to our members. There are also many NGOs that provide all kinds of support to people in need. Cooperation with them is permanently inscribed in our activity. The last examples of such assistance were the activation for our employees to participate in the collection of disposable diapers for Pomeranian Children's Hospice. Another example is supporting blood donation or participation in sports events in which funds are collected to help non-governmental institutions needed by people. These are all activities that help those in need, but at the same time, allow employees to be involved in doing useful things and integrating our employees with local communities. Young people are beautifully involved in all the activities listed here. Together, people involved in the WOCCU and GWLN projects in Poland support all our 8 activities. This gives young people the opportunity to engage in activities needed socially, and at the same time shows the essence of our mission in the best possible way. Thus, we arouse interest among young people to work at credit unions. This is the practical dimension of our pro-social activities. Not for profit, not for philanthropy, but for the common good. People helping people. Next, please. Thank you. And at the end, very short, the pandemic has radically changed our world and has left no one indifferent to the scope of and importance of this phenomenon. Even if it did not affect us directly, we probably have people who have painfully experienced COVID-19 among family or our friends. This new reality has presented us with new challenges. We talk to share our experience and help each other go through this difficult period as well as possible. Thank you for the opportunity to listen to colleagues from other countries. I hope that our experience is also a valuable lesson from which you will draw good conclusions for yourself. Despite many changes, some values of our work and mission remain unchanged. And this is the best proof that they are good and timeless. I wish you much success and good decision. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Rafał. Great presentation. We've actually got a number of questions. We are at the top of the hour, but if you want to stay for a few minutes, I do want to get to some of the questions that are in the queue. So we appreciate you being here, and we understand if you can't stay, but I will get to those now, and we'll try to get through them. A few of these quickly. The first one is for Mark White. Malgorzata Gatz has a question about the Fair Goods platform, and she wants to know, Mark, whether it's dedicated mainly to the current members of the credit union, or is it also offered to potential credit union members as well?
It'll be available to potential new credit union members as well. So it's open for everybody.
And she also wants to know if it supports debt collection.
Not quite sure what that question means.
Okay. Or can it support the first steps of debt collection? I don't know either, but
I'm guessing what the questioner means is perhaps if somebody's in financial difficulties. Yep, we're open to looking. Our core criterion for looking at a loan is affordability. So we might refer a loan. They might not get an instant approval, but if it's a refer because there's more information needed, or perhaps they've got a bad credit history, we will pick up the phone to that applicant and talk to them about their credit history and understand whether the loan is affordable for them. So if that's what the questioner means, then yes, we will look at people in that sort of situation.
Okay. Another question. This one is for Rafał. Do you have any feedback from your members, Rafał, about what they did to find the most difficult time in the pandemic regarding their contact with their financial services providers? Were there any surveys or any other kind of direct contact with members to find out what they had issues with, or maybe what worked well?
Yes, talking about situation in Poland, as I said, it was very important that we can maintain a majority of our branches open, and people looked for that kind of contact with financial institution. From the other side, a lot of people learned about how to use modern internet tools to open channel to financial services, and we had many contacts and many informations about that combined activity. Helped a lot for many people, and they also be very grateful for our help in different areas than financial services. I'm talking about our help for different organizations we delivered during the pandemic period.
Okay. And just a final question here from Justina. She just wants to know, we heard about fair goods from Mark. Perhaps Bogdan, were there any special products that your credit union, Polish and Slavic, offered during the pandemic, specifically because it was a pandemic and there were certain needs for the members, or there were certain things the credit union wanted to do?
Well, we didn't offer a special products in that term, but for example, we offer a lot of concession on the current products. I mentioned during my presentation that, for example, for over 3 months, we waived all of the fees on our accounts. So if anyone had any, return checks, overdraft, all of those fees were canceled. We decided also, that wasn't in my presentation, to do loan modifications. So those members who actually had the problems with paying their loans, either consumer loan or mortgage, they approach us, we work with them, and we either postpone the payments for 3 or 6 months, or we just reduce the payments to the interest payments only. So that was the significant concession. And I have to say that all of those members right now return to the regular payment schedule without any interruptions. That was very, very helpful for them.
All right, well, we are going to wrap it up now. Thanks for those of you, most of you stayed to hear some of the question and answers, so we really are glad we could get some of those in, and we appreciate everybody being here today. And again, we just want to remind you that today's webinar was recorded. It's going to be available later today on the World Council YouTube channel. That's at youtube.com/WOCCU. So if you saw a presentation you really liked, you want to share it with others in your credit union or elsewhere, you can do that. And that's going to do it for us today. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great day.